Whether it's recovering archaeological treasures or evading Nazis, Indiana Jones could do no wrong, and he's been immortalized in 5 films, starting with the classic Raiders of the Lost Ark. But even in that first great film, there were quite a few bloopers that can change your experience of looking at it. Join Facts First to see some of the most popular Indiana Jones blooper scenes you may have missed. Where did you find those tarantulas? Raiders of the Lost Ark starts off somewhere in South America. In one scene, Indy gets bombarded with tarantulas, but this is when we see one of the first bloopers. Indy wasn't being crawled upon by South American tarantulas, but rather Mexican ones. If you're an expert on arachnids, perhaps Mr. Spielberg owes you an apology, but there might be a reason as to why Mexican tarantulas were chosen. One was the convenience, of course. Mexico is closer to the US, but also the Mexican tarantulas weren't as harmful and were much easier to handle. Where are you from, Mr. Cobra? We don't recommend you ask such a question if you come across a cobra, but some more discerning viewers might have become puzzled when Indy is facing a cobra directly. Indy is in Egypt, but he's facing a cobra that has its origins in Southeast Asia. Perhaps the Egyptian cobras were on strike at the time. No one knows why this particular cobra was chosen, or whether there was even a particular reason. But no matter, we know that this has become one of the most tense scenes in the film. We don't blame you if you shut your eyes so tightly you didn't notice where the cobra was actually from. Don't miss your flight. In the first part of the film, Indy is running away from the natives and trying to escape. When he's in the deepest forest, he's trying to find his plane where his pilot will help him escape. By the time he reaches the plane, the pilot has already started it up. But how did the pilot know Indy was on the way? How could he possibly see the man from such a distance? Say that again? An expert archaeologist like Dr. Indiana Jones wouldn't make a mistake in giving a lecture to others, and he'd know his Bible rather well. Yet there was a major blooper when he's explaining the Ark of the Covenant to his colleagues. He states that Moses took the shattered tablets on which the 10 Commandments were written and placed them inside an ark, that ark being the Ark of the Covenant. However, the story is actually different. In the actual biblical story, God instructs Moses to put the broken tablets in a brand new ark that he has to build. One wonders if any archaeologists and theological experts stormed out of cinemas during the scene. No assigned seats in Dr. Jones's class. Early on in the film, we see Dr. Jones teaching a class to his students. If you look closely, you'll see that during the scene, the students keep changing positions. They're always in different seats. This is a continuity error, and the script supervisor didn't pay as much attention to where the students were sitting. In fact, the young student who has "Love You" written on her eyelids and sits in the front to show Dr. Jones moves around quite a lot during the scene. Perhaps she wanted to see him from different angles, or maybe she moved after she saw he was clearly not interested. Even the student who gives Dr. Jones the apple at the end of the class moves his seat several times. No time for playing with swords. One of the funniest and most memorable scenes from the film is when a swordsman is waving his sword to strike fear in Indy's heart. He's preparing for a duel, ready to behead this foreigner who's entered his land. Indy simply doesn't have the time or the energy for a sword fight, so he simply takes out his gun and shoots the guy and then moves on. But this hilarious scene is actually a blooper. Harrison Ford wasn't feeling too well on the day, and he truly didn't have the energy to get into a long fight, which is what was originally scripted. So he just took out his prop gun and fired, and the actor playing the swordsman fell down, remaining in character. The scene may not have been what was originally intended, but it made a great scene. Nap time. One of the most tense sequences in the film takes place in the Well of Souls. When Indy and Marion enter the Well of Souls, they speak to a guard watching over the well. And when they escape, if you look closely, you'll see the guard sleeping. It's easy to miss because your focus is on Indy and Marion, but the man really was just taking a nap. I guess we can't blame him, it was a hot day. Blink and you'll miss it. Now let's end with a few quick Indiana Jones blooper scenes that happened so fast you'll need to watch several times to realize that you missed it. For example, fast forward 38 minutes into the movie and you'll see a vicious sword fight. A sword goes through a man's body, yet when the sword is removed, we don't see any sort of stain on the sword. The character Satipo, played by Alfred Molina, has crooked teeth. When Indy finds the idol, he smiles and shows these ugly teeth. But once the man dies, you can clearly see he has perfectly straight teeth. Maybe there was a dentist hiding in the jungle. When the Ark is being carried away, it's in a box that has bars and a huge lock to protect it. But in another shot, the bars and lock disappear. I suppose you just have to write "top secret" on the box and that's good enough. Some fans have also stated that the Ark would be so heavy that it wouldn't really be easy for just Indy and Sala to carry on their backs. But then again, do we know about Harrison Ford's and Jonathan Rhys-Meyers' workout regimes? In the film, Germans are present in Egypt and control large parts of it. But in reality, the British Army had a huge military stationed in the country. There's no way they would have allowed the government of Nazi Germany to just turn up. If this historical inaccuracy bothers you, just remember Hitchcock's famous words, "It's only a movie." In the temple where Indy has to face his fear and is surrounded by an army of snakes, in reality this wouldn't have been possible. A huge number of snakes wouldn't be able to last as long without being able to eat food. They would simply die off. In the scene where there's a bar fight at Marion's bar, when Indy is in Nepal, a bottle of Jack Daniels is lit up. But in reality, the alcohol content of a bottle of Jack is too low to get used as a Molotov cocktail. It couldn't light up like it does in the movie. But don't try this for yourself, just take our word for it. Now, do you feel a bit disappointed with these bloopers? Don't be. It makes the film more fun, and it remains a classic. While there was the occasional blunder, there was also a lot of research done to remain as accurate as possible. So much so that there are some parts of the movie that are regarded as bloopers but are not. For example, in the film, you'll see the Nazi officers smoking cigarettes. Many history buffs have said this is inaccurate as Hitler banned smoking. But he banned it in 1939, whereas the film takes place in 1936 when it was still very much legal. Also, while few Nazi soldiers spoke English at the time, there were a few officials who were fluent in the language. They were chosen to serve in parts of the world that Hitler wanted to take over. So the soldiers speaking English in this film isn't inaccurate after all. So go on, finish watching this video and then watch Raiders of the Lost Ark. It remains a classic to this day. Now it's time to hear from you. Are you a fan of Raiders of the Lost Ark? Did you know about these bloopers? Did they affect your perception of the film? Let us know in the comments section below.